In 2019, a game was released called Disco Elysium that completely changed the way that I view myself and the world around me. Because a younger Dane was super involved with politics and would constantly have conversations with people who are on the opposite side of the spectrum than him in an attempt to understand the world that he lived in and his own marginalized status. This all began to change, though, in 2016 in the preceding years with the BLM riots, mainly because of the fact that the conversation got so toxic. Any conversation I'd have would always end in these platitudes such as, oh, it doesn't matter what you say, Dane, Trump's going to build that wall anyway. Or going on the TV and seeing people who look just like my father die during these riots. So Dane got scared, and he became far more reclusive and didn't want to talk to people who weren't already his friends because he didn't want to deal with the repercussions of what his ideologies meant to him, even if they were his own truth. But this all changed in 2019 whenever I played a game called Disco Elysium. See, it follows a amnesiac detective as he's forced to both solve a murder and understand the world around him and what it means to be a human. One of the parts of this is that you can choose what political faction that you belong to, and on my first playthrough, I chose to be a communist. Don't make any personal assumptions about me. And upon choosing this route, you get the line, "Here we go. Wake, brave worker, 'tis no time for bed. Fight till there's no slaves below and no masters overhead." This singular line can be used to summarize this entirety of the speech and what has driven me to talk about my ideologies and what drives me as a person. I want to talk firstly about our government and how they treat us terribly through lying to our face. And then secondly, I want to talk about the slaves, the people that we profit off of and live such wonderful lives, surf it with any luxury that we could possibly want. So firstly, let's talk about how our government treats us terribly. I think our government being our masters tracks well, and we can even talk about how they constantly lie to us. David Foster Wallace has a wonderful article on this entitled Up Simba, where he follows John McCain on the campaign trail and talks about the disillusionment of younger voters. He attributes this to the constant lies that politicians spew. To quote, "And we keep learning for years and years from hard experience that getting lied to sucks, it diminishes you, it denies you respect for yourself, for the liar, for the world, especially if the lies are chronic, systemic, if experience seems to teach that everything you're supposed to believe in really is just a game based on lies. Younger voters have been taught this well and thoroughly. You may not personally remember Vietnam or Watergate, but it's a good bet that you remember did not have sex with that Miss Lewinsky, etc., etc. It's painful to have to believe that the would-be public servants you're forced to choose between are all phonies whose only real concern is their own care and feeding, and who will lie so outrageously and with such a straight face that you know they have to believe that you're an idiot. As an example of this, we can look towards Donald Trump and him saying that he's going to build a wall over the Mexican border. This is something that is literally impossible, and yet it was one of the platforms that he ran on. He had to believe that we were stupid to believe that this is even something that he could possibly do with that presidential seat. And yet he still got president. And that is unjust. That ignited something in a younger Dane to talk about it. But also, let's take a step back and see who would be building this wall. Where would the resources come from? Whose lives would be changed from such an act like that? Who are the slaves that the quote is referring to? Specifically, they are conglomerates who refuse to acknowledge human rights. Tyler Sonamaker has a wonderful article on this whenever he writes for Business Insider that states that Apple openly uses child labor willingly and uses it as a whip to crack other manufacturers into producing more. This isn't even to mention online platforms such as Shein or Temu, who also have multiple articles related to them using child labor, and yet who are still up and running, and yet who I still see people buying off of today. These are peoples whose lives are being changed, all so that we can get a $15 pair of leggings. It's unjust, and a younger Dane thought that too. So, whenever I heard this quote, what it really inspired for me to do was to go out and try to have these conversations, these difficult topics, even if I would be rebutted with that my opinion didn't matter, or that I was simply just disillusioned because I knew that they were my truth. And even now, whenever I have conversations that are more political in nature with people who are opposite of me, I get tired. Begin to feel that rising feeling of a younger Dane saying, "It isn't worth it, Dane. Just back down." But then Disco Elysium comes back in mind, and I think about all the slaves that I'm doing this for, all the people, all those children who are working in third world countries so that I can live a luxurious life, and how they should be recognized and talked about. And I think about the government and how they lie to our faces. How the left party has been talking for years about how they were going to make Roe v. Wade an actual law before it was finally overturned. I think about these consistent lies, and what they do to me is they light a fire in my stomach to try and cause some change. And that's what they should do for you. Thank you.